Boulder Creek, California, located in the Santa Cruz Mountains here in the central coast of California, may honestly be one of the most beautiful places I have ever lived in my life. And there are so many videos out there about the Santa Cruz Mountains where it might make you feel like you're gonna move there and everything's gonna be beautiful and perfect and serene and you're gonna live your best fairy tale cottagecore life. Which, sure, could happen, but I think personally we really need to be realistic and the pros and the cons of moving somewhere very new, especially if you've never lived here before. I'm a local realtor here in the area, and while I do love to share everything I love about this area, I really like to be educational in the way that I work and give you both the pros and the cons. I'd rather scare someone away from living somewhere if I know it's truly not the right fit for them, because ultimately at the end of the day, I'm not buying a home, you are, and it really needs to be the right fit for your lifestyle, your family, and your overall ambitions and goals, short-term and long-term. So without further ado, here are some things that if you don't like, then you probably want to avoid moving to Boulder Creek, California. Again, this is a very subjective thing. Every person that watches this can feel very differently, but I just want to thank you in advance for taking the time to watch this video and really educate yourselves about your potential next chapter. This is probably the best thing you can do if you're thinking of even moving to the area in the foreseeable future, whether that's later this year or in 5 years. So let's get on into it. Number one is nature. We are one with nature out in the mountains. We have multiple state parks. We are engulfed in these gorgeous ancient redwood forests, but we are in it. Like, let me tell you, you are going to have wildlife. You're going to have trees down. You're going to have branches falling. You're going to have the weather that comes from living in an environment like this, a mountainous, forested area. That means the wind is just going to be different than inland California. Really just so many considerations to be made regarding the nature that you're living in. Absolutely, you can enjoy everything there is and all the hiking trails nearby and the peace and the quiet that comes from sitting under the stars at night with no light pollution. I absolutely love that about Boulder Creek. But I'm not tone deaf about all of the craziness that also exists being in nature like this. We have mountain lions that roam our neighborhoods. You want to make sure your cats and your small dogs are inside at night because they will get eaten. The trees that fall every winter in the rainstorms, the crazy wind that knocks out the power. Nature is its own beast and you're one with it, you're in it, you cannot avoid that when you're living out in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Fresh air. Fresh air is number two. It kind of goes hand in hand with nature, of course. My favorite thing is when we have family from out of state that comes and visits us and stays with us. They always sleep with the windows open and they always tell us how relaxed and refreshed they feel in the morning when they wake up because they breathe in the nice, beautiful forest air. The AQI is usually pretty good here in Boulder Creek. We're shrouded in forest, so we have a lot of that oxygen and that good fresh mountain air with a little bit of a hint of that redwood scent in the summer. It's just like a sweet, woodsy smell, not too musty. Really just gotta come smell it. Now the downside to that fresh air is here in fire season, which honestly hits all of California and many states in the West Coast. But with fresh air, it doesn't necessarily stay around when it is smoky out. So we do get very smoky days here, especially in August, September and October. That's pretty much the worst of it. Is it 24/7 smoky? No, but you definitely can smell it. And in the winter, because we're very rural, a lot of properties around here do have fireplaces as their main source of heat, and you honestly will smell the smokiness from people's fireplaces pretty often in the winter. So take the fresh air with a grain of salt. For the majority of the year, you will have that beautiful, good feeling air, no smog or anything like that. But in the winter and in fire season, we do get very smoky, hazy days where you're just not gonna wanna have the windows open, especially if you're in a higher elevation where the smoke is rising. So further up the mountain areas, you may get the smoke from down below, lower in the valleys. I'm someone who loves to have their windows open all the time, so it does kind of drive me a little bit stir crazy here in the winter when I can't open them. Now, affordability is another topic I would love to touch on, and this is a pretty subjective one, honestly. A lot of people love the Santa Cruz Mountains because they love how affordable it is. Well, when you're comparing it to the rest of the Bay Area, yes, it is more affordable. But when you think about it, we are kind of a rural community with not like a giant central core. So we have one gas station in town, we have 2 very small grocery stores, we have 1 post office, a bank, a couple other little shops. But that being said, because we're out there a little bit, I definitely see a little bit of a price premium on some local goods. Gas, they definitely charge whatever they want because that's all you're gonna get. Whereas if you go down to like Felton, where they have 2 or 3 gas stations, you'll see a little bit better pricing down there because there's competition. There is no competition for that in Boulder Creek. It's what you get is what you get. But if you're used to a little bit of a lower cost of living, maybe you were in like Texas or something, you may find that the affordability factor is really not it here in Boulder Creek. So affordability really is kind of one of those subjective terms, but you do have to consider, based on where you're coming from, is it going to be more expensive or less expensive to what to expect? Power outages is my last little tidbit here. If you're not a fan of living in the dark or dealing with generators or continual power outages, don't move to Boulder Creek because we get them quite often. Sometimes in the summer we get public safety power shutoffs from PG&E, aka if it's really hot and really windy and it's really good fire weather, they may just turn the power off as a proactive measure, which does get many residents very frustrated. In the winter, when we have our crazy weather, our atmospheric rivers, windy, rainy days, a tree may fall and take the power out as well. And when that happens, the power is usually out for 3 or 4 days at a time because there's a lot of steps you have to go through before you actually can turn the power back on. It's not just a quick flip back on to the grid. So you need to be prepared for that as a homeowner, and generators are really such a hot commodity here in the Santa Cruz Mountains. You will see properties priced more expensively when they have those automatic whole house generators. And what that means is when the power goes out, you literally don't have to do anything. The power will just come back on because your generator is automatically going to kick in and move over to that power grid. If you don't have an automatic generator like that, then you're gonna have to manually either go outside or go to wherever your panel is, and a lot of panels are outside here in the Santa Cruz Mountains. You'll have to disconnect the PG&E grid, you'll have to reconnect it to the generator or put the extension cords, however you have that setup going on. But there is actual work you're gonna have to do, and that is going to impact working from home, being able to be connected, because a lot of homes out here may not have coverage like cell service, so you may be relying on internet. And you have to make sure you're still going to be able to connect to that even when the power is out. And being able to be prepared for these power outages, which means making sure you always have gas for your generator, making sure your generator actually works and doesn't need an oil change right when you need to use it, is going to be very important. It's extra considerations and extra maintenance and extra dollars that you're going to have to think about if you want to live out in a rural area. Now, I will say Boulder Creek is not the only area that has these power outages. This is pretty common across any rural community here in California, and I would imagine many rural communities across the country. So if you're not a fan of power outages, you're not a fan of dealing with the generator all the time, you may not want to have Boulder Creek as your first pick for moving to California. That being said, sometimes it's nice to have a power outage to really just disconnect from the hustle and bustle all the time and really just take a deep breath and be okay with that. Also, is your employer going to be okay with that? I think that's really important, and a lot of people don't think about that. If you do drop off in the middle of the meeting because your power goes out, are you going to get dinged at work for that? Maybe it's a question you have to talk to your boss about if you think you can handle the power outages, but you have other considerations to think of as well. So those are my top considerations to say if you're not comfortable with those, maybe avoid moving to Boulder Creek in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I always love doing these kinds of things and thinking about the downsides and playing devil's advocate with any area that you're looking at moving towards. I really am your real estate wingwoman, so I'm here to help consult upon a move, whether that's locally or across California or really across the country. Please give me a call anytime. I'm here to brainstorm with you. My timeline is your timeline. I don't care if it's something you're looking to do soon or within the next few years. I don't think that's ever too early to really consider where you're gonna plant your roots down. It is your home and your life at the end of the day, so you should be as prepared as possible to make that big decision. Take a look at some of my other videos on YouTube if you want to learn a little bit more about the Santa Cruz mountain life or how the market in general is going in that area. And of course, again, call me anytime, day or night. That's what I'm here for. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.